So how in the world did Satoshi figure this out? How did he? I don't understand how he could conceptualize this. It just doesn't make sense to me.
It's an incredible work of genius when you think about just the amount of expertise that he had to have in different fields of knowledge to bring this monster together is absolutely astounding.
Yeah, well, just the conceptualization to begin with, let alone the implementation, the engineering implementation.
To be fair, I mean, it wasn't like he invented this problem. It's a problem that has been around for many decades. People have been trying to build a digital form of money for decades. Since the 1970s and 80s and 90s, there have been attempts to do something like this, and the different attempts to produce something like this always came up against a technical problem called the Byzantine generals problem. And then Satoshi figured out a solution to it through the proof of work system, which is absolutely astounding.
So tell me about that. That sounds, if we can do that without deviating too much. So what is that problem and how did he solve it?
Well, the problem is essentially about how to get all the different nodes on the network to agree on the same version of what's going to happen together. How do they all agree without having a central command authority? That's really the issue. So how do we make sure that we can all agree on this? All the members of the network, we don't evaluate any claim for the transactions. We only evaluate the claim that has done the work and that has spent the money.
So why would someone make that claim then if it's so difficult? What's the advantage to that?
You get $350,000. You get 6-7 bitcoins.
And how is that related?
That's the mining process. That's the mining.
That is the mining process. That is the mine. Okay, good. Okay,
exactly.
Now I got it. That's the mining process.
Exactly. So to mine new bitcoins, you have to solve that problem. So this is why it's portrayed as mining. It's like those computers are digging in the ground trying to find the solution of the mathematical problem. It costs money to be able to arrive at that solution. On average, around $350,000 currently at current prices. So that's in order to be able to make a claim to get that, your claim doesn't get looked at unless you've solved the problem. And it's very cheap for everybody on the network to see that you have the right solution to the problem. But it's very expensive to arrive at that solution. So the solution is like this very difficult key to find. But once you've found it, it's trivial to verify that this is the right key because you just put it in the lock and it works. So it's instantaneous and very cheap for members of the network to figure out that this thing is correct. So you set up this massive hurdle essentially. If anybody wants to come and get this reward, they first need to spend.
Why wouldn't they just buy Bitcoin? It seems to be a lot simpler than mining it. That if it costs $350,000 to make $350,000, why bother with the mining? You said it rewards more efficient people.
Exactly. The short answer is if you have a way of securing electricity at less than 5 cents per kilowatt hour, then you should get into Bitcoin mining business, which is lower than most rates everywhere in the world. So if you have a source of energy that is isolated from the grid, or if you have a cheap way of securing energy, then Bitcoin is a great way. Mining Bitcoin is great, but for the most.
So does that mean that Bitcoin is a very good way of moving resources from places that can produce electricity very cheaply to other places where electricity is more expensive? Does that actually make the cheap electricity, it makes the cheap electricity much more valuable?
Absolutely. This is
weird. That's a weird thing.
It's very weird. I think it's going to have a very profound impact on the global energy market because for the first time in history, we have a way to sell energy that is location independent. So a lot of places in the world have a lot of energy, but it's very expensive to get that to the population center. So the north of Canada hasn't. So
you don't need wires.
Exactly.
Jesus, that's weird. That's a really strange thing.
Yeah, to get electricity from the north of Ontario to Toronto needs a lot of wires, or you need to, if it was gas, you need to put it on tankers or on trains or in pipelines. All of that stuff is pretty expensive. But with Bitcoin, you just need an internet connection. You take the Bitcoin miners to where that energy is, and then you can monetize that energy and turn it into Bitcoin. It's magic.
So what's the net effect of that on the price of electricity worldwide? Is that deflationary with regards to electricity cost?
I think so. I think this is a point that I make in the fiat standard, which is that we've had fiat subsidize all these dysfunctional forms of energy over the last 50 years that have led to the grid becoming unreliable, and we have Bitcoin, like the vigilante savior that it is, coming in and providing a global subsidy for anybody who can make electricity at a cheap rate to monetize that. And I think,
well, not only at a global subsidy, but it's so interesting, because not only you could go to where the energy is cheap with virtual certainty that you're going to make more and more money as the value of the Bitcoin increases by investing there, assuming that the value of Bitcoin is going to continually increase, which is a logical presupposition if it's as stable as is claimed, and it's finite in the way that you're describing, and increasingly widely accepted by vast numbers of people. So it's also an investment that's likely to increase in value over time rather than decrease. So it takes some of the uncertainty out of investing in cheap electricity generating processes that are geographically isolated. I just can't believe that's true. It's amazing that I think I must be misunderstanding, because it seems like you can move the value of the electricity magically without any of the problems of transportation.
yes, exactly.
Wow, that's really something. Okay.
And in terms of, think about it in terms of independence, I think the implications are pretty good, because if you have an energy source, it becomes far more sustainable to be able to exploit that energy source if you have a steady way of monetizing it. So I think it can help people get off the grid. It can help people become more independent. You have your own energy sources, and you have your own monetary system that you use to trade with the rest of the world. You don't need much of the control of the grid on you, which is getting more and more suffocating every day.